Am I the antagonist for not being able to get past my 20F parents' treatment of me? I am currently a 20-year-old college student majoring in accounting, balancing my studies with a part-time job that takes up about 30 hours per week. Unfortunately, I'm currently dealing with depression, which has greatly affected my motivation and overall well-being. Recently, a situation occurred that deeply hurt me. I overheard my dad making hurtful comments about me behind my back, calling me derogatory names such as a freeloader and a bitch. He also insinuated that I am envious of my brother, who has the financial means to treat our parents to football games and hotel stays. I confronted him, asking him to say those things to my face, and he responded by mentioning how he feels obligated to provide for me and let me live in their home. However, I want to clarify that I am financially struggling, as all my money goes towards my education and essential expenses such as my phone bill, gas, car insurance, clothes, toiletries, textbooks, and internet bill. I've never asked my parents for financial assistance, and the only support I receive from them is being able to join in for dinner, which my mom prepares for the entire family. I understand that it is generous of them to allow me to live with them without paying rent while I'm attending school, but being labeled as a freeloader feels unjust. To provide some context, it is important to note that my parents are devout Mormons and have a highly orthodox parenting style. However, I am gay, which has always been a source of tension between us. Throughout my childhood and teenage years, I lived in constant fear of being disowned, prompting me to work tirelessly in order to save up for a potential day of rejection. When my sexuality was ultimately revealed, I was met with a cold silence that was even more painful than any words. High school was an incredibly challenging period for me. I battled depression, watched my grades suffer, and struggled to keep myself together. Reflecting on those times now, I realized just how horribly they treated me, although I constantly reassure myself that it could have been worse. All I ever desired was to hear my parents say they loved me and that they were proud of me, even if I didn't fit their ideal image of a perfect Mormon daughter and occasionally received a B on my report card. Unfortunately, I became the embodiment of their shame. They were not hesitant to make it clear that they were ashamed of my sexual orientation and my reluctance to attend church, a place where I always felt like an outcast. They coerced me into attending until I turned 18, always holding the threat of homelessness over my head. Although they have made some improvements, it is difficult for me to forget everything that has transpired. They still treat me like a burden, evident through their decision to exclude me from a family trip due to my inability to afford it. I'm torn when considering the future of our relationship. They fear that I will cut ties with them once I move out, and to be honest, I'm unsure what kind of relationship, if any, we will have. My dad is particularly insistent that it seems like I do not want to have a relationship with him, which deeply hurts him. However, I struggle to move past the resentment caused by their treatment. So here's my question. Is it wrong of me to be unable to let go of this resentment, even though my parents are allowing me to live with them rent-free as I attend school? Your parents have subjected you to emotional abuse and have made you feel like a burden for being true to yourself. It's completely understandable that you struggle to move past the resentment given the way they have treated you. Living rent-free at their house while you go to school is kind, but it doesn't excuse their hurtful behavior and the emotional toll it has taken on you. It's important to prioritize your mental well-being and protect yourself from further harm. Consider seeking therapy or support from friends or LGBT+ organizations to help you navigate your relationship with your parents and heal from the trauma. Remember that your feelings and experiences are valid, and you have the right to distance yourself from toxic relationships for your own well-being. Am I the antagonist for not inviting my dad and his wife to my courthouse wedding? My dad was mostly absent or abusive during my childhood military family. When I was 23, he started an affair with his now wife. My mom was upset and died when I was 24 while going through the divorce. My dad married his now wife 10 months after my mom died. He had proposed months before she died. It was messy to say the least. I have been low contact with my dad since I moved out. It's only gotten lower since I decided to allow a relationship with my daughter and my dad's wife. But I limit it. She is never alone with them. When I met my now husband, not my daughter's dad, I tried to establish a low-contact relationship between them. We went out to dinner the first time they met and it was bad. My dad's wife was drunk before we arrived. She asked the same 4 questions about 5 times each and then, like a light flipped, she accused my husband of using me, being a liar, etc. She's a God-fearing woman and grew up in this place in the South and knows how to spot a liar. Basically, she was drunk. It got awkward. My husband thanked them for their time and apologized for any wrong ideas they may have had, and we left. I later told my dad that his wife needed to apologize as what she said was uncalled for. She texted me to apologize, my husband accepted, and he wanted to just go on and pretend it didn't happen and not make a big deal about it. They wouldn't allow this and insisted that he had to go to dinner with them so that they could apologize and talk about it. He didn't want to, and I didn't force him. They ended up not coming to my daughter's birthday party because he still hadn't accepted their apology the way they wanted him to. So we went no contact, NC, for 7 months through the holidays. I broke the NC to tell my dad happy birthday. I started talking to them again, had dinner with them and my daughter. My husband didn't come because he still felt unwelcome. I didn't force him. I had been low contact with them for the last 6 months. My husband and I decided to get married on Halloween at the courthouse. I told my dad's wife the date and the time. I told the same thing to my mother-in-law. We didn't specifically invite anyone, but my mother-in-law begged to be there. We honestly thought we'd just get married and not make a big deal about it. But we were not against anyone coming if they wanted to. Well, this last weekend my car had a flat tire, and I called some friends for a ride so I could get a new one. I only have one car. Everyone was busy. I tried my mother-in-law, but she was busy. I finally tried my dad, but he was busy. I got my car towed. Problem solved. That night at 2 a.m., I got a ranting text from my dad that he felt insulted and was pissed off that I'd ask him for help, but not invite him and his wife to my wedding. Yet I invited my mother-in-law and stepdad, and that the only way to fix this was for both me and my husband to apologize to him. That was 3 days ago and I have not responded. I'm starting to feel a bit guilty for not specifically inviting him. So am I the asshole for not inviting him? Given the strained relationship you have had with your father and stepmother, it is completely understandable that you did not invite them to your wedding. Their behavior in the past, including W's drunken outburst, and the fact that they have previously caused problems by not accepting apologies, demonstrate that they have not earned a place in your special day. Additionally, it seems like your wedding was not meant to be a big event or a show for others. You mentioned that you did not specifically invite anyone and that you were not against anyone coming if they wanted to. Therefore, it was reasonable for your mother-in-law and stepfather to be there if they expressed a desire to attend, as they are important figures in your life. Your dad's reaction to not being invited and demanding apologies is manipulative and unreasonable. It is not fair for him to hold your request for assistance with a flat tire against you and expect an invitation to your wedding as compensation. It is clear that he is trying to guilt you into feeling bad. You should not feel guilty for not specifically inviting your father. It is your wedding, and you have the right to decide who you want to share that moment with. Am I the antagonist for not wanting to invite my dad to my wedding because he didn't tell me he was marrying his mistress? I, female 26, have a somewhat awkward relationship with my dad, male 54. He tries to get along with me, but I can't trust him completely because he cheated on my mom, female 53, twice. The first time was when I was 3 years old, and as a result, my stepsister was born. The second time was when my mom was pregnant with my little brother when I was 11. My mom found out about his infidelity 3 years after my little brother was born and kicked him out of the house. When I was young, my dad was a great dad who visited me every day, even though we didn't live together, and he always looked out for me. But after my mom got pregnant, his attitude changed, and he started neglecting us. When my dad left home, he would visit me and my little brother 2 or 3 times a month. Sometimes he would take us out to eat and bring us back home. However, he would always claim that he had no money and didn't want to pay more than $325 in alimony to my mom. Everything remained the same until 2 years later, when my mom told me that he was going to marry his mistress. Instead of getting angry, I decided to wait for him to call and talk to me about it. However, he never did. As the wedding date approached, I asked him if we could go to the theater that day, but he simply said he couldn't because he was busy. It was clear to me that he had no intention of telling me. It was around 6 months after his wedding when I directly asked him why he didn't inform me about his marriage. Nervously, he admitted that he didn't know how I would react, but offered to introduce us to his wife. I agreed to meet her, but expected a proper conversation between all of us. Unfortunately, my dad decided to introduce her to me as a surprise on my 18th birthday. The situation made me and my brother very uncomfortable, but nobody addressed it. At that moment, I realized that was the last straw, and I made the decision not to invite him to my wedding. Now I'm just 4 months away from marrying a wonderful man, and I'm still sticking to my decision. My mom asked me if my dad would walk me down the aisle, but I told her he wasn't invited. She got angry and insisted that I shouldn't exclude him from such an important event in my life. She claimed that I'm not a child anymore. Seeing her upset made me consider whether to tell my dad, but even then, he would only attend as a guest. My fiancé also believes I'm overreacting, as he thought my dad had simply abandoned me. So am I the asshole for not wanting to invite my dad to my wedding? It is completely understandable that you do not want to invite your dad to your wedding. Your relationship with him has been damaged by his infidelity and his neglectful behavior towards you and your family. Trust is a key component of any relationship, and it is clear that you cannot fully trust your dad due to his past actions. Your mom may be upset, but it is ultimately your decision who you want to invite to your wedding. Your feelings and comfort should be the priority. It is unfair for anyone to pressure you into inviting someone who has caused you emotional pain. Your fiancé may not fully grasp the complexity of your relationship with your dad, but it is important for him to support your decision and understand your perspective. It is not fair for him to dismiss your feelings as overreacting. You have every right to set boundaries and protect your emotional well-being. Your wedding should be a joyful and stress-free event, and it is up to you to decide who will contribute to that happiness. Am I the antagonist for telling my dad that he shouldn't have asked me a question if he wasn't prepared for the honest answer? I am a 25-year-old woman and I'm not as close to my dad as I used to be. We were close until I was about 13, but things changed. It seems like he only realized it now or started to care now that I'm living a more independent life, and he's not as involved as he wants to be. When I was 8, I lost my mom, and we were really close. However, I needed my dad more during that time. Then when I was 11, he got remarried and became a stepfather to a girl who was 10 at the time. Now here's the truth. I was extremely jealous that my dad was trying to bond with her and that he immediately referred to her as his daughter and us as his girls. It made me feel less special, like I didn't matter as much because how could someone so new to him be equal to me after such a short time? Every time he spent time with her, it made me feel sick. He still spent time with me, but after about 6 or 7 months of marriage, he started to spend more time with his stepdaughter. I hated it. I was both devastated and angry that she was getting my dad. When I was 13, my dad mentioned how much he preferred spending time with her over me because they had similar interests. He said he couldn't spend enough time with his stepdaughter and that he was hoping I would hit the teenage phase of not wanting my parents around so much. He didn't say it directly to me, but I overheard him saying it to his best friend. His best friend advised him not to say that out loud, but my dad mentioned that most parents probably feel that way. He assured his friend that he would never tell me this to my face. Then he admitted that he also resented me for not accepting his wife the way her daughter did. He wanted us to be the perfect little family, but it seemed like we were more like a step-family because I didn't really want his wife around. I granted my dad's wish, and over the years he spent more and more time with his stepdaughter. They would do things together up to 4 times a week until she turned 16 and wanted more space. He was devastated by that, and it crushed me as well. So I decided that was all I needed to know, and I didn't try to get closer to him anymore. Recently, after I moved in with my boyfriend, my dad approached me and asked why I had distanced myself from him. He mentioned that he expected me to call him, and he wanted to know why I had pulled away. So I explained everything to him, from my jealousy to what I had overheard him say. I told him that I chose not to remain close to him when he felt that way. My dad was offended that I had ever been jealous. He told me it was disgusting that I wanted to deny his stepdaughter the chance to have a dad. He also argued that he should be allowed to have common interests with someone other than me. I agreed, but I also pointed out that I was just a kid who had lost my mom and relied heavily on my only living parent. He then accused me of manipulating him by saying all that, and I responded by telling him that he shouldn't have asked the question if he wasn't prepared for an honest answer. He got upset and told me to grow up. So am I the asshole? Your feelings of jealousy and hurt are very valid, especially considering the circumstances of losing your mother at a young age. It's not wrong to feel hurt when a parent's attention shifts, and it's understandable that you would have been upset by your dad prioritizing his stepdaughter over you. Your dad's reaction to your honest answer was inappropriate. Instead of acknowledging your feelings and attempting to understand your perspective, he became defensive and dismissive. It's unfair for him to accuse you of manipulating him when he asked for an explanation in the first place. It's important for parents to recognize and address the emotions of their children, and it seems like your father failed in that regard. It could be helpful for both of you to seek counseling or therapy to navigate these complex emotions and improve your relationship. Am I the antagonist for telling my son that his situation is his own fault and not him move back in? I, a 52-year-old man, have 3 children, all of whom have moved out of the house. While my children were growing up, my wife and I were strict, focusing on their academics, extracurricular activities, such as musical instruments, sports, and school clubs like speech and debate, and chores. However, we also made sure to have fun with them, like family vacations and outings. Our main goal was to ensure our children would become successful adults. This approach worked for our older son, Michael, who is 25 years old and in medical school, and our daughter, Jennifer, who is 23 years old and works as a software engineer at Facebook. Even though they live in different parts of the country, they regularly keep in touch and visit us a few times a year. Unfortunately, our strategy didn't work with our youngest child, David, who is now 20 years old. David never responded well to our parenting style and began rebelling at the age of 13. Despite our support for his interest in art, which I personally disliked, he struggled in other subjects and graduated high school with a GPA of 2.2. It's not because he had a learning disability, he simply lacked motivation. Throughout his school years, we argued about his study habits and performance, causing strain in our relationship. After high school, we helped David enroll in an art school, but he dropped out in March 2022 to move in with an online boyfriend. Since then, we hadn't heard from him. Last week, David showed up at our home unexpectedly and asked to move back in. He had broken up with his boyfriend, who cheated on him and had nowhere else to go. I didn't hold back and told him that his situation was a result of continuously choosing short-term pleasure over personal growth. He seemed to expect sympathy, but instead, we offered him the opportunity to move back in under certain conditions. These conditions included him finding work or going back to school and following a set of chores and a curfew. David refused, calling our terms prison-like, so I told him to find somewhere else to live. He left angrily. While it's clear that you had high expectations for your children's academic and career success, your approach seemed inflexible and narrow-minded. Not all children thrive in the same pursuits, and it appears that David may have been more interested in art from a young age. Rather than supporting him in his interests, you admit to feeling chagrined by it. Your refusal to adjust your parenting style to accommodate David's different inclinations may have contributed to the strained relationship between you. Your reaction to David's return home is also unsympathetic and lacks understanding. While it's disappointing that David dropped out of art school and ended up in a difficult situation, this is an opportunity for you to offer guidance and support, not chastise him for his past choices. Instead of addressing his emotional state or his need for stability, you immediately impose strict conditions that seem more like punishment than helping hand. When David expresses his reluctance to comply with your demands, you quickly dismiss him. As a parent, it's important to have empathy for your children's struggles and show them love and support during difficult times. You should consider reaching out to David and having an open and honest conversation about his goals and aspirations. Offer him guidance and encouragement instead of pushing him away. Would I be the antagonist if I report my half-sister for taking advantage of her job's privacy policy to find people's information? I'm a 22-year-old female and recently received a text message from my half-sister, who is 27 years old. We have chosen to be no contact due to personal reasons regarding my own well-being. She works in a government position in our county where she has access to people's information if they have interacted with her office before. This data is stored and maintained by her department. I believe she may have accessed information regarding me from her job even before she began working there. Although we live separately about half an hour away from each other, we share the same mother, who also does not communicate with her. In the text, she revealed her identity by asking for a portion of our deceased father's money. He was previously married to our mother. While the sum is not significant, it amounts to a few $1,000s. She claimed she had legal grounds to sue us based on their past marriage. I responded to her text by addressing her by name and questioning why she was contacting me and how she obtained my number. I also expressed my discomfort with her actions, as I never willingly disclosed this information. She nonchalantly replied that it was not difficult to find and insisted her contact with me was for legal purposes. Subsequently, I blocked her, but I'm contemplating whether it would be appropriate to report this incident to her workplace. It feels like a violation that she was able to easily locate my contact information and potentially access other personal details for her own benefit. Moreover, I am concerned that this lack of privacy protection might extend to other individuals' sensitive information as well. Despite thoroughly searching the company's website, I have found no indication that their employees have the legal authority to engage in such conduct. To me, it appears analogous to a hospital revealing patient information without consent or any other situation where confidentiality is breached. Would I be in the wrong if I reported my sister for exploiting her job's privacy policy? It is completely understandable that you feel violated and concerned about your personal information being accessed by your half-sister through her job. It is a breach of privacy, especially if her workplace does not have a policy allowing employees to access and use personal data in this manner. Reporting this incident to her workplace is a valid course of action. By doing so, you can raise awareness about the potential breach and ensure that appropriate action is taken to protect people's personal information. It is important for institutions handling sensitive data to have proper protocols in place to prevent unauthorized access and misuse of information. It is your right to protect your own well-being, and taking action against this breach is a reasonable step to do so. There is no inherent obligation to remain silent and allow such behavior to continue. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.